The British expedition to Tibet, also known as the Tibet Expedition or the Young Husband Expedition, was a military campaign launched by the British Empire against Tibet in 1903 to 1904. The expedition was motivated by Britain's desire to establish greater influence in the region, protect its trade interests, and secure a buffer zone between British India and the expanding Russian Empire. Background: in the late 19th century, Tibet was a predominantly Buddhist country with a rich cultural heritage, but it was also isolated and relatively unknown to the outside world. The British Empire, which controlled India to the south, had long been interested in Tibet as a buffer zone between India and China, and as a potential source of trade and strategic influence. In 1903, relations between Britain and Tibet deteriorated after a British expedition was blocked by Tibetan troops at the border. Britain saw this as a hostile act and decided to launch a military campaign to force Tibet to open its borders to British influence. The British expedition to Tibet was led by Colonel Francis Younghusband, a British military officer and explorer. The expedition consisted of over 3,000 troops, including Indian soldiers and Gurkha mercenaries, as well as hundreds of porters, mules, and horses. The British force advanced into Tibet in December 1903, encountering resistance from Tibetan troops along the way. The expedition suffered from harsh weather conditions, disease, and logistical challenges, but eventually reached Lhasa, the capital of Tibet, in August 1904. The Tibetans, who had little experience with modern warfare, were no match for the well-equipped British force. The British troops were able to capture Lhasa and establish a British presence in Tibet. Impact: the British expedition to Tibet had a significant impact on the region. It marked a major milestone in the expansion of British influence in Asia and established Tibet as a protectorate of the British Empire. The expedition also sparked a backlash among Tibetans, who resented the foreign intervention and saw it as a threat to their independence and culture. The expedition had lasting implications for the region, including the establishment of a British presence in Tibet and the subsequent incorporation of Tibet into the Chinese Empire. It also contributed to the growing tensions between Britain and China, which would later lead to the Boxer Rebellion and other conflicts. Conclusion: the British expedition to Tibet was a significant event in the history of Asia and the British Empire. It marked a turning point in the relationship between Britain and Tibet and had lasting implications for the region. The expedition was controversial at the time and remains a subject of debate and discussion today, with some seeing it as a symbol of Western imperialism and others as a necessary step in the expansion of British influence in Asia.